Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japan Station.
Welcome to Japan Station, a production of JapanKey.com. This is the podcast where we teach you everything you should know about Japan, plus a few other things. I'm your host, founder of JapanKey.com, and the anime linguist on YouTube, Tony R. Vega. So today we're talking about the Japanese language because I've got a public release of my Japanese Plus Alpha podcast for you. So that podcast is the one that I used to do for my $3 a month and up Patreon supporters. It's not currently active, but I do occasionally drop bonus content for the $3 a month and above listeners. Anyway, this is about the Japanese language. I won't say anything else because, well, the episode explains itself adequately enough. So let's get into it. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's the episode. From JapanKey.com, this is Japanese Plus Alpha, a podcast about the Japanese language and its various quirks. I'm Tony Vega, and today we're talking about shoulders and getting old. Okay, so let's start with the shoulders part. So the other day I was listening to a Japanese radio show. It's called Tamamusubi, and it's a show that I listen to every once in a while. I don't listen to it as much as I used to, but I still sometimes tune in because I like the hosts. But anyway, so I was listening to this and they were talking about kind of like their maladies, their things that they were dealing with as they were getting older. And one person in particular mentioned that they were having shoulder pain. And so then this word came up. And actually, there's two versions of this word. But anyway, take a listen.
四十肩になってまして、私。
So we have shijūkata and gojūkata, and both of these words mean some kind of like shoulder discomfort or pain. Maybe you have a stiff shoulder, you can't raise your arm as much as you used to, or you know, just some kind of general discomfort in your shoulder, or maybe even both shoulders. And literally, these words mean 40 shoulder and 50 shoulder. So shiju actually literally means 410, right? Like that's one way to say 40. You can also say yonju, which normally you would hear that more often. But in this case, it's shiju. And then goju, again, 5 and the 10, right? That makes 50. So literally, you're talking about 40 shoulder, 50 shoulder. And that's because, let's say you're around 40 and you start to have those shoulder pains that I was talking about. You would call that a 40 shoulder, like the condition that you get when you're about 40 or in your 40s. Same for when you're about 50. Let's say you're around 50 and your shoulder starts to hurt. Oh, that's just gojūkata. So what's the difference between these two things? Like, is there any difference between 40 shoulder and 50 shoulder? Well, I looked it up and no, there isn't. Which means that these are two rather vague terms to describe shoulder discomfort without any acknowledgement of like a concrete cause. And both can be used interchangeably almost, except that they just depend on how old you are. So if you start having pain at 30 years old in your shoulder, that's not shijūkata, no, because you're just not old enough to have shijūkata. And if you're 60 years old, well, I guess you're just old. That you don't have like 40 shoulder or 50 shoulder. You're just old. And if you're 70, well, I guess it's just expected that you're going to have shoulder problems. So it's such a peculiar little, you know, couple of words, right? Like I can't think of any comparable pair of words or set of words in English. And when I was researching this, I found an article that was about like, what's the difference between shijūkata and gojūkata? And essentially it just said there's no difference. And you should be careful because let's say you have some serious like shoulder issue that maybe can be resolved by going to a doctor, and you hit 40 and you're just saying, oh, that's just my shijūkata. That's just my shoulder acting up because I'm 40 something. It's like, well, maybe, yeah, 40 is not exactly super young. And yeah, you know, you have some shoulder issues perhaps, but maybe it's actually like something that you can resolve. So go get treatment, go see a doctor. So don't just laugh it off as like shijūkata or gojūkata. So go see a doctor if you're having shoulder pain and you happen to be, well, any age. So shijūkata, gojūkata. So another term that came up in this discussion that I thought was kind of interesting and one that I hadn't heard in quite a while. But so there's this set of terms that are like arafo, arafifu, arasa. They all begin with ara. And then you have like two letters, I guess you would say, right? Two mora after the ara. And all of these are terms that are used to refer to your age or somebody's age. So arasa means like you're around 30 because ara comes from around. So araundo would be like the katakana Japaneseified pronunciation of around in English. Arasa. Sa comes from 30, saati. So you end up with arasa. That's another 4 mora word. I know I always bring those up. So it's you chop off the ndo and you chop off the t, and then you end up with arasa, 4 mora word. And that just means, again, like around 30. You are around 30 years old. You might be like 27. You might be 32. Like you're just somewhere in that general ballpark. And then arafo is, I think you can guess where I'm going with this, right? But around 40 because the fo comes from 40. And again, 4 more a word, arafo. And then arafifu, then you get, around 50. So 51 or 49 or 48, you're all around 50. And then fifuti, right? You chop the T off and you end up with arafifu, 4 more a word, right? So these are all kind of like cute little ways of kind of hiding your age a bit. You might say it if, let's say, you're 52 and then you just say like, oh, I'm arafifu, whatever. Or that lady is arafo, or that guy is arasa, or whatever. Like there's different ways, you can use it second person, first person kind of sentences, third person sentences. So just a cute way to kind of, hide your age, or maybe somebody might tease you saying like, oh no, you're 27, you're arasa, you're actually like almost 30. So, so just this kind of like soft way of referring to somebody's age. I guess you would say kind of a delicate way to do it because, age can be kind of a sensitive topic. But anyway, those are the things that I wanted to talk about on this episode. But if you're a patron, stay tuned till after the little outro here because I also came across an English conversation school commercial during that radio show that I was listening to. That that commercial was just very amusing to me because it kind of didn't make much sense, or at the best case scenario, I would say that it just confused me and I couldn't think of a good explanation for why what was said in that commercial was said. So stick around for that. I'm going to break that down and hopefully it's going to be entertaining for you. But anyway, thank you for listening and see you next time on Japanese Plus Alpha. All right, so let's get into that commercial. So that commercial that I came across while I was listening to that radio show was for ECC. And ECC is, of course, one of the most well-known, popular, maybe. I would hesitate to say popular. Just popular by default, I guess. Widespread, common English conversation schools in Japan. They're all over the place and they advertise like crazy. So this radio commercial... Well, I'll just play it and then we'll deconstruct it afterwards.
英語で娘に慰められた。
Why are you crying?
ECC ジュニア生徒募集中。ECC.
All right, so this commercial features a supposed dad and his daughter. All right, so you hear the dad speak Japanese.
英語で娘に慰められた。
And then you hear the girl, supposedly the daughter, right? Or at least this girl is playing the man's daughter. You hear her say something in English.
Why are you crying?
So, in case you don't know what the guy said, I'll break it down for you. He said, 英語で in English, 娘に by my daughter, 慰められた. I was comforted by my daughter in English. There's no context. There's no explanation. What the heck is going on? He just says, I was comforted by my daughter. And then the next thing you hear the daughter say is, why are you cried? In this, kind of stilted English. Her pronunciation is quite good. It's just, I think that they just brought in a little girl to act this, and they told her say this, and then she just says, "Why are you crying?" Like no context for her probably, aside from, I don't know, your dad is crying. But like the tone that she says this in to me sounds very like accusatory. It's like, "Dad, why are you crying?" Like she's angry at him almost. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but all right. So let's go back to the dad. So the dad, no context here. He says, my daughter comforted me like in English." And then the girl comes like out of nowhere and says like, "Why are you crying?" in this kind of accusatory tone. And we don't know why he's crying. Like, and then why, if he was crying, did the daughter decide to quote unquote comfort him in English, like rather than in Japanese? I mean, clearly this guy, he speaks Japanese like a native speaker. I'm assuming that this is a native speaker of Japanese, born in Japan, and that, or does he know English? Because otherwise, why would the girl speak to him in English? This doesn't make any sense. I hope you're following my train of logic here, but this commercial just totally stood out. And I mean, to it kind of just made me think like, this is the problem with like English education in Japan. It's like this commercial doesn't make any sense. And somehow the person that came up with the idea for this commercial thought, yeah, this is going to get people to sign up for ECC. This is going to get people in the door and paying for English conversation classes. And sadly, I wouldn't be surprised if it did, because, you know, that's just, that's how these things work. People do go to ECC to get this like private classes or class, like group classes or whatever. But yeah, I don't see, like, this is not an effective ad for me. This is an utterly confusing ad that just tells me like whoever put this ad together is not representing what this school is claiming they can do, right? You want your daughter to ask you like weird things in English when she can just talk to you in Japanese, and to ask them in weird tones that may almost be offensive? Then come to ECC. We've got you. All right. Sorry. I had to get that off my chest, but hope you found that interesting. See you next time.